In this video, we're going to go over quickly the search tab whenever you are editing a field. So to get started, I've got a multi-select field that I've already created right here, this all languages one, which is based on a multi-select field on the front end of the listings that allows users to select multiple languages. So in every field configuration on here, whenever you're selecting a field, as long as it's not something like a spacer, you're going to have this search tab. So the search tab is where you define what we call the source. So the source is going to have a drop down here where it's going to have listed all of the WP Job Manager default fields that can be searched. It's going to have any taxonomies that have set up or that you've custom added that can be searched. And then it's going to have all your custom listing meta fields that you can select from, as you see here. And then also right now just there's a search radius custom one. Obviously that's grayed out because I've already got that field on this page. But as you can see here, what I've got selected is the actual meta key for the languages one. Let's go back up here, languages. So under here, you have to select a source for any type of field type, and basically, like I said, that just searches, when the search is done in the database, it's going to compare whatever value is selected or entered here to whatever is on the listings on your actual site. The next setting you're going to have here is you're going to have a trigger. The trigger is what you configure of how the actual search is going to be triggered for this field. Most of the time, if you don't have a search button on your site where users have to click that search button, then you're going to have to select this trigger and you're going to want to set it to automatic. You can either have it set as automatic or manual. Whenever it's automatic, that means that based on your configuration here, whenever a user enters or selects a value, that's going to automatically trigger the search to update all the listings shown to them. What you'll see right below that is an after. After is the numeric value based on the actual type that you have that's selected right here. So I'll probably move the type up above after so it makes sense. But the way this works is, like, think of it this way. So a user enters in a value or selects a value. So what you want to do whenever that happens is you're going to want to determine when to trigger that actual action. So right here, characters does not make sense because they're not going to actually enter anything in here. So we're going to want to select one of these, either millisecond or seconds. So if we select milliseconds, then whatever the value is here is what it's going to be set for. So I'm going to go ahead, let's use seconds so it makes more sense. And just so everybody knows, 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. So by default, it's normally going to be set to 500 milliseconds, which you should keep it at that, and I do not recommend changing that at all, but basically that's half a second. So what that means is that a half a second after a user selects a value, trigger the search. And the reason being is that if you had this at 0 and somebody just comes in here and starts rapidly changing values over and over again, this kind of creates a delay in not constantly pegging your server, overloading it, trying to search over and over again while a user is kind of going through that. And we'll go through a couple different field types here real quick to show you what the different options are. But for this one, whenever you have it set to automatic, you're going to have a few different settings. For a multi-select field like this, where a value is selected, you're going to either select milliseconds, seconds, and then you're going to enter that in the after field. The next one you're going to see below here is going to be compare. This is the comparison that is done whenever the search is triggered. So what you can do here is you can actually have these set so it can be equals, does not equal, greater than, all these values. The way this works is, so with the equals itself is the actual value itself. When you have something like greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, less than, what that means is these values means that if there are 5 or more of those selected, chances are you're never going to need to change this. I don't recommend changing comparison unless you actually know what you're doing and you really need to do that. The only one that you may want to change for that is the actual relation. So as you see here, the relation, you have all match and any match. What this basically means is that when a user selects multiple values here, it's telling the search whether you want every listing that's returned to either have all of those languages that are selected or the values that are selected, or any of them. So this could mean if I set it to any, I save this, and somebody selects Spanish and English from languages, it's going to show every listing here that has either English or Spanish. They don't have to have both of them, they can just have either one. Unless I leave it at the default, which is all, and then it will make sure only the listings will return that have exactly the value selected. So let's go ahead and check out another field real quick, just to show you how these vary a little bit based on the field types. So now I'm going to go over here to a standard text field, and we'll come over to search, and you'll see the standard text field. I'll go ahead and switch this to automatic. So standard text field, you'll see we still have this after field. We still have the type, which does have the characters now. So with the actual characters, if we set this here, in the after value, I can set this to say 5. So this means after the user has entered in at least 5 characters, trigger the search. Now, with a standard text field or any kind of field where a user types in or enters a value, you're also going to have this debounce value. So a debounce value, which I do not recommend changing this any lower than 500, which is half of a second. What this basically means is that it's not going to do this check, the check to see if they've entered 5 characters or not, until after this amount of time. So from the moment the user stops typing, it will wait this amount of time before doing the check to see if it should trigger the search. And again, this is just so your server does not get pegged over and over again. You know, every time somebody types in a letter A, then B, then C, you know, so you don't end up getting 3 searches just for those 3 characters that user entered in. So that's for standard text fields. And you have a few different values. It comes over here, so we'll go to this, we'll look at like the search radius one here. So that one's kind of the same there. Let's check out a taxonomy. And you'll see here, so this is the job types taxonomies, and you'll see it has kind of the same options. Any match, all match, and these are all based on whichever the field type is. So you may see a few different ones that are kind of come in there. Just kind of go through them, and just, if you ever have any questions, click that little question mark right there. It'll give you a little bit of information about it. But this is kind of the details of how the search tab works and how each one of these triggers works. Again, if you have this set to manual, this means that you will need to have some kind of a button or something on here that will trigger the search.